Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Mueller at Apartment Advisor. Welcome to Operating Smart, how AI can help you run a more profitable rental portfolio with less effort. This session runs about 20 minutes, and while it's geared to small to mid-size owners and property management companies, it's really for anybody working in multifamily looking to learn more about practical use cases for AI in their operations. All right, let's get started. So just a little context on who we are. Apartment Advisor was founded by Langley Steinert, who was the co-founder of TripAdvisor and the founder of Car Gurus, two disruptive technology platforms in their respective industries. And with Apartment Advisor, we're bringing that same deep technology experience and innovator ethos to multifamily. We launched Apartment Advisor as an ILS search platform back in 2020. And we continue to operate that platform, apartmentadvisor.com, helping thousands of renters every day research apartments and connect with their next landlords. But it was through that experience working with renters and owners that we saw firsthand the day-to-day challenges that many operators were facing. And we saw a clear opportunity to develop modern technology that offered better solutions to some of those challenges. And that's what led us to build Apartment Advisor Assist, which is an AI native property management platform built to help you work smarter. So, does any of this look familiar? There's a common theme we're hearing from operators these days, and that is that they are burned out. And it's not really the burnout that comes from the big strategic problems. Instead, it's the small day-to-day management and operational challenges and inefficiencies that stack up and make it hard to get out of the weeds or make it impossible to look ahead to your next sale or acquisition. And the costs of those inefficiencies aren't only monetary. I think everyone on this call recognizes at least a few things on this slide, whether that's the slow lead response that leads to vacancy issues or the maintenance back and forth that took 4 phone calls to resolve something that should have been resolved in 1, or worst of all, chasing a resident for rent personally when you've got 10 other things to deal with. And for many people we talk to, the processes and the technology that they have in place now aren't keeping up, let alone helping them get ahead. So here's a cost scenario for a hypothetical 100-unit portfolio across vacancy loss, OpEx, and delinquency. Vacancy loss at 5% vacancy on 100 units renting at $1,500 a month, that's $7,500 a month at risk. Maintenance waste. Let's assume 40 tickets a month, with 20% of those resulting in an unnecessary vendor dispatch. At $150 a visit, that's $1,200 a month in avoidable costs. And delinquency on a $150,000 rent roll, 4% chronic delinquency puts $6,000 a month at risk. That's over $15,000 a month from just 3 operational areas that could be working more efficiently. So the question is, where can AI actually play a role in fixing this, and what does that really look like in practice? You're probably already using AI in some form, whether that's ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and that's a really good starting point. But there's a big difference between using those consumer AI tools and AI that's embedded in your systems. Let me break down exactly what that looks like, because it's really 3 distinct things. There's conversational AI that can handle communication on your behalf. So the lead that comes in at 10 p.m. or that Sunday morning maintenance request. It's immediate, it's consistent, it's always on. Then there's agentic AI, which doesn't just respond in the way that a conversational AI agent can. It can actually move things forward. So a resident message can be triaged and become a work order, or tasks can get routed and completed without a human managing every handoff. And then there's the analytics piece. Your operation is already generating signals all the time, whether that's in payment patterns or your maintenance history. And AI can read those signals and give you insight into performance, helping to guide those really important decisions that can help you grow your business. You'll see all three of these at work in each area of opportunity that we'll cover next. Leasing is where revenue either enters your operation or it doesn't. So let's start here. Industry research is pretty consistent on this. Around half of prospects will lease with the first operator who responds to their inquiry. So not necessarily the best unit or the best priced unit, but the first operator who picks up the conversation. The average independent operator responds to a lead somewhere between 4 hours and the next morning. Your AI-enabled competitor, and they're probably in your market right now, is responding in under 60 seconds. So they're able to engage the renter in the moment that they inquire and move the inquiry further along, in most cases to a tour. And after hours, based on data from our platform, around 40% of all renter inquiries come in when your team probably isn't working. And so without AI, those leads just sit until the next morning or Monday morning if they've come in over the weekend. And by then, that prospect has probably booked a tour somewhere else. AI is especially well suited to help with lead response. Here's what AI-driven lead response actually looks like, and this is using both conversational AI and agentic AI. A prospect inquires on one of your units. The AI responds immediately. And again, it's not with an auto response, but it's a real conversation where the AI can answer questions about your property, capture their move-in timeline, household size. It can ask about the dog breed. And by the time the conversation is done, that lead has been screened per your criteria. The lead record is fully populated, a tour is booked, and your leasing agent or property manager wakes up to a pre-qualified scheduled prospect. Nothing needed to wait until morning. If we zoom out for just a second, you'll see here, AI doesn't just fix lead response, it can optimize the entire leasing cycle. So pricing can get smarter with market and vacancy data driving where you list and at what rent price. Every lead gets an instant response, as we just talked about. Prospects get screened, tours get booked, and that's happening 24/7. Approvals and lease signing keep moving with automated follow-up, so nothing stalls. And notably, renewal risk surfaces earlier, so you can flag residents before they've already decided to leave based on analytics. Your team focuses on the conversations that actually close, so it's AI and humans working together at every stage. And that's the full leasing lifecycle running smarter. Let me make this more real with an actual example. Sun Properties is a 200-unit operator in Boston, which is a market where we're based, where nearly every lease turns over between March and August. Hundreds of inbound leads come in per day during the exact same months when their team is already stretched across maintenance, renewals, and resident communications. Their leasing manager, Henry, described it well. Between March and September, there's a massive pull on property managers to handle scheduling, inquiries, and leasing on top of everything else they're already managing. Sun was really doing a lot of things right. They were working hard, following up. They were doing tours regularly, but leads were going dark overnight and on weekends, and everything was being tracked through a shared email inbox. So on top of the lead volume, there was also no visibility or accountability and really no way to scale through the busy season without burning people out. Since implementing AI with Assist, Sun has saved 70 plus hours on screening and scheduling, and they've seen a 100% increase in screening conversations with prospects. And the time from inquiry to scheduled tour dropped to 20 minutes. So here, their team didn't get bigger, but their system got a lot smarter, and it had huge impact on their leasing operations. Moving on to our second area of opportunity, maintenance is one of the most complex workflows in property management. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of hands involved, and what we see is that a lot of operations are still managing it the same way that they did 10 years ago, and that's where a lot of the cost hides. So right now, the average work order touches 3 or 4 hands before it's resolved. Resident submits, someone sees it eventually, there's some back and forth to scope the problem. The vendor's deployed, sometimes they show up unprepared, and then a second visit's needed, and the resident is still left waiting. Based on our data, we estimate 20 to 30% of dispatches are actually unnecessary or wasted. a vendor rolling a truck without enough information to complete the job. And so that's real money leaving your portfolio on every single one of those calls. The operational cost is measurable, but there's a second cost that's harder to see. Survey after survey puts maintenance response as the number one driver of renter renewal decisions. So not rent price, not amenities, but whether the resident felt heard when something went wrong. And obviously that can impact your renewals. Here's what changes when AI handles maintenance intake. A resident submits their request and they get an immediate response at the time when they are focused and available to talk about the issue. Then AI asks the right clarifying questions. Again, not with a form, but a real conversation. What's the issue? Exactly where? How long has it been happening? Can you attach a photo? And by the end of that exchange, you end up with a vendor-ready work order with full context. And in some cases, AI resolves the issue before anyone needs to be dispatched at all. Here's a real example. A resident reports a fridge issue, and the AI is able to ask clarifying questions and guide them to check the temperature settings before anyone is rolling a truck. The issue gets resolved. There was no dispatch. The resident's pretty satisfied, and it's all happening without human intervention. Here's what we typically see from operators using AI for maintenance. 30% faster work order resolution, 20% fewer unnecessary dispatches. And all of the requests that are coming in after hours, 100% of those can be triaged without anyone on your team needing to intervene. And then there's what the numbers don't capture. That resident who texts in at midnight with a breaker issue and gets a response in seconds and even gets walked through the fix. That's not only saving you time and cost, but it's enhancing the experience for that resident. Our survey of renters shows that renters would actually prefer to talk to a well-trained AI agent than to have to wait for an issue to be resolved the next day. Here's another real example, this one from one of our partners, Madison Property Management, which primarily serves student housing at the University of Wisconsin. And they get a ton of resident requests. So these are numbers from a single month, 136 hours saved on maintenance triage, 86% of tickets enhanced by the AI, half of all requests handled after hours without any staff involvement at all. 136 hours, that's your maintenance coordinator's time redirected from coordination back to the work that actually requires a human. All right, let's move to the third and final opportunity zone. Collections is the zone operators tend to like least to talk about because it touches the landlord-resident relationship in a way that can feel very personal. And it's that discomfort that can make it really expensive. On a 100-unit portfolio with a $150,000 rent roll, 4% chronic delinquency puts around $6,000 a month at risk. And that assumes you're actually catching it, which manual follow-up almost never does consistently. The other issue, every late payment conversation creates friction for your staff and your residents. And every interaction that isn't documented becomes a liability if things ever escalate to legal. Not in all cases, but in many cases, delinquency is preventable. Automation of rent collection can have a tremendous impact. Here's a quick look at what automated payment follow-up looks like. So a resident portal with proactive balance reminders built in, clear reminders, and a clear path to pay without anyone needing to pick up the phone. And here's what the research shows from operators using automation for collections. 35% less staff time chasing payments, 2 fewer days to collect on average, 60% of follow-ups handled without anyone on your team involved. And then there's, again, also that audit trail. Every message, every timestamp, every response is automatically logged. So if a situation escalates to legal, that documentation becomes everything. And most manual processes create none of it. So here we have faster collections, less friction, and a documented process. That's what this zone delivers. So let's take a minute to talk about business impact. Hopefully throughout the session, you've started to see how AI automation and analytics can contribute to performance across a bunch of different metrics. So making leasing more efficient so you can hit your vacancy and revenue goals, reducing your expenses and strain on your operations and maintenance staff. Individually, Improvement in any one of these areas can make a difference. Together, they compound. And what makes AI different from some of the point solutions that have come before it is that it can function as a catalyst across the whole operation, enabling all three of these workflows. Larger operators winning at scale have had a version of this connective tissue in their business forever. They just built it with larger teams and expensive technology systems. And what's changed with AI is that the leverage is available to you now at a smaller size and without adding overhead. So the question really becomes, where does AI fit for your specific operation, and where do you point it first? As you're thinking about where to start, these are the kinds of questions that we think are worth asking across all three areas we covered today, and more broadly around the technology and systems that you already have in place. Having a clear picture of your processes and your outcomes will give you a good idea of where the problems and the opportunities are for implementation. And then once you have that picture, here are a few key actions to take. First, pick one area. You don't have to pick three, pick one. Start where the friction is highest or the cost is most visible. That's where you're going to see the results the fastest, and it's where you build the confidence to go further. Second, measure your baseline before you change anything. So vacancy days, dispatch rate, days to collect. This is the step people skip most often and they regret most later. It's really hard to prove ROI if you don't know where you've started. Third, get your data in order. Unit details, vendor contacts, maintenance SOPs. AI works with what you give it, and the cleaner your foundation is going in, the faster it can do something useful. And then finally, bring your team along before you roll anything out. There's a fair amount of resistance to AI on the front line right now, and helping your team understand the benefits of this tech is critical. That conversation had early makes everything go faster. And if I could add just one fifth step, it's take advantage of the free resources that we have available. So if you're the kind of person who wants to see something before you talk to anyone, we have some interactive demos that let you experience how the conversational AI will interact with your renters firsthand. If you're ready to think about your specific portfolio, a quick walkthrough is exactly what it sounds like. We'll look at your operation together and tell you specifically where we'd start and why. It's not a generic pitch, it's really just a look at your numbers and your situation. And if you're still in research mode, the Owner Resource Center on our site has the ROI calculators and guides that will be really helpful as you continue to educate yourself about AI. All of these are free. The link is on your screen, and we encourage you to take advantage of all of those resources. So thank you all for spending this time with us today. I hope this was genuinely useful. And certainly if you have questions, please feel free to reach out at the email provided. Thank you.